Greetings. I am April Ruiz, and I am the owner and lead mastermind at Mosaic Masterminds. I welcome you to join me in a conversation today that I think is very important: the connection between mental health, emotional well-being, and education. I've invited one of our local experts to help facilitate this conversation so that we can all learn better about how students learn more effectively when they are mentally and emotionally well. Dr. Lennox Forrest is a clinical psychologist at Faith Counseling Services, and I appreciate him for his time today in helping us to facilitate this conversation. Thank you, Dr. Forrest, for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation, April. I appreciate the fact that I'm here with you.
Thank you. So I feel that in order for us to be of any good to other people, we have to be our best selves. How do you feel that parents can be their best selves so that they can be as effective parents as they can be to their children?
To be the best self as a parent, I think we have to look at it in a multifactorial level. So what I would say is that if we look at it from 4 dimensions, one is the mental. So it's important that the parent is mentally sharp. Then you look at the physical. For the parent to be able to walk, exercise, they're addressing their physical needs. Then you have the emotional part to the parent, their thoughts, the things that they're thinking. And then the last one is the spiritual dimension, that they have a faith in their God and they practice that. And the child sees that their parent is balanced. That's the most important thing about parenting, is to be balanced and also to be functional and to set a good example for that child. So if they have those 4 areas in place, then I think that parent is going to be a good parent and is able to parent effectively.
Thank you. Is it fair to say that children have a deeper connection with their parents, or at least respond more effectively to their parents if they feel like they have trust in their relationships with their parents?
Most definitely. When we're looking at good relationships, trust is foundational to a good relationship because it helps the person or the child to feel secure, to feel stable. So that trusting relationship is very, very critical in that parent-child relationship. Because when there's trust, the child knows that they can expect certain things from the parent. There's reliability. They can depend on the parent. They can count on the parent. So trust is an extremely important variable when it comes to any relationship, but especially that parent-child relationship.
I was going to say, I feel in any relationship that I engage in, trust is very important to me.
Yes.
And so going back to, what you were saying about if children feel they can trust their parents, what are some ways that parents can model their actions so that children can trust them? What are some ways that parents can develop a deeper trust with their children?
It's important for the parent to be able to listen to the child. When the child is talking to that parent, to listen. And I mean not just hear the child, but to actively listen. And actively listening means that the parent doesn't have an agenda, but they're listening intently, and that is conveyed to the child in such a way, in terms of the eye contact that the child is making with the parent and the parent is making with the child. So they're looking the child in the eye. So that lets the child know that this parent is invested. And that will help to establish that trust with that parent. So you want to actively listen. You want to make eye contact with the child so the child knows that you're invested, you're taking them seriously, and you're not just hearing them, but you're really genuinely invested.
My adult life is keeping maintenance of my confidence, particularly in the career choices I've made.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of my childhood, I feel like I had less fear about making mistakes. I feel like I had more room to be in error or to do things wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be okay. And I think that part of why I felt that freedom is because my mom gave me such room to explore and be creative.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel that allowing opportunities for creativity is something that can help a child feel more comfortable and feel more confident in succeeding? And if so, what are some ways that parents can afford chances for their scholars to be creative?
Creativity is extremely important because when you have a creative child, that helps the child to feel confident, to feel good about themselves. So creativity is extremely important. So a couple things that parents can do to help facilitate that creativity is the motor movements, motor movements for a child. For example, give them opportunities to use their hands. Having a child put together a puzzle. So once again, you're looking at visual acuity, and then you're synchronizing that with their ability to use their hands. So that visual motor skills, very, very important for a child. Then you also can teach the child certain things that they can do. For example, maybe playing music. That helps creativity. Introducing them to different things, even if there's reluctance on the child to engage, but just putting it out there. Those are good things to help a child with. We know that children who are left-handed, because they tend to be right-brained, that they tend to be more creative. So whatever you can do to help to facilitate their involvement in certain things, such as drawing, painting, listening to music, different types of physical activities, gymnastics, ballet, all of that will help to increase or facilitate the creativity of a child. But that creativity really goes a long ways in terms of building up that child's sense of mastery, where they feel that they've got skills now that they didn't have before. Once again, that creativity can go a long way into helping promote the child's confidence, their sense of self-esteem, self-worth.
I would have to agree from my personal experiences. I was into performance arts and drawing for a while. That's no longer my skill, but
Yes.
it definitely helped me to feel some esteem about myself, being able to accomplish certain things and to feel more comfortable in social settings.
Yes.
So I think that that's spot on. Another thing that I think, based on research, which is clear that stress can really impact how students learn. It can also bear a great deal on our emotional well-being, our mental health. So, are there ways you could propose parents be working on managing their stress and ways they can help teach stress management to their children so that they can have better experiences in their educational
Yes.
experiences?
Good question. I go back to a research that was done on stress. And the most extensive research was done by Dr. Hans Saley. He's a medical physician in Canada. And one of the most important things that came out of his research is that when stress occurs, the most important thing that we can do is how we react to it, how we respond to that stressor. So I think for parents, one of the most important things they can do is model good stress management for their children. As parents, the greatest things that they can do is to model, is to set the example by what they do. So how they react to stressful situations, their child will see that. So if they can model that in a positive way, the child will be able to pick up on those types of cues and hopefully internalize that for themselves. Also, when stressful situations come, it's important for the parent to be able to talk to the child. And while talking, it's also good to be able to do something active. So that way, that movement for that child and the parent helps to release or reduce stress in a positive way. And other things that parents can do when they talk is they can even have that child draw, because certain children, depending on the age level, they may not be able to articulate certain things verbally. So if you have them draw something on paper, or maybe paint something, do something fun, those are things that will help to decrease stress and help the child to manage their stressors in ways that are positive and productive.
Okay. And I would imagine that having those productivity exercises and positive reinforcements in place would yield positive benefits on a child's self-esteem.
Yes.
And I think it's important, I often refer to the village concept, because it's not just parents, but it could be other caring adults
Yes.
who are on students' teams of support.
Yes.
And I think it's important for all of us to bear in mind the esteem building that children should have when they are going through life and when they're trying to learn. So what are some ways that parents and caring adults can help foster self-esteem building in children?
Very good question. One is to provide them with lots of opportunities to engage in things, even if these are the things that the child may not like. But you give them options, give them choices to do certain things, because that's also going to help with their independence and once again foster their sense of esteem. And then focus on what they do as opposed to the results that they accomplish. Okay? So I think that's an important thing for a parent to do. Hey, we're going to do this, but we're not going to be so focused on the end result, but the fact that we're doing it and we're enjoying it and we're having fun doing it.
That's striking to me, that last part, because I think as adults we are often focused on the end result. And frankly, it's kind of how we navigate life. At our jobs,
Yes.
we're rewarded with
Yes.
Possibly a bonus,
Yes.
possibly a promotion.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting but understandable to me that we want to help our children develop not based on the outcome,
Right.
but possibly the process to get to the outcome.
That's right.
And so that, I don't know, that just really resonates with me, and it sounds like a call to action
Mhm.
that we need to give each other more grace, and for
Yes.
sure give our children more grace,
Exactly.
so they don't focus so much on making mistakes
That's right.
or choosing the wrong thing, but having everything be a learning opportunity for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's important for the child to know that mistakes will occur, but it's not the most important thing. And then it's also encouraging to let them know that if a mistake happens, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
When you think about a lot of great men, they incurred a lot of failure before success occurred. You look at Thomas Edison, he tried hundreds of times before he invented the light bulb. But people have to understand, and it's important for parents to teach children that failure is success turned inside out. And then you do your best as a parent to praise that child when they do things. Praise them in public. And minimize the harsh criticism. And if you have to criticize them privately and be careful how that's done, because that can impact the child's self-esteem and emotional well-being.
Yes. I would add privately and gently,
Generally,
because it can be very damaging
can be.
going too harshly
That's right.
in a critical matter.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate this conversation. I just want to open it up to see if you have any other advice outside of the questions I asked, any other tips or strategies you'd like to offer on how parents can be of best support to their children when working with developing their mental health, their emotional well-being, as they are going through school, as they are learning life lessons. How can we be of support to our children?
Good question once again. I think for parents, it's important to have routine and structure for their children. They go to bed at a certain time, they wake up at a certain time, they're doing things at a certain time, so that establishes that routine, that structure, that discipline that really helps a child in terms of their behavior. And when it comes to sleeping, it's important that there's a set bedtime. And depending on the age of the child, most teenagers need 10 hours of sleep.
10 hours.
10 hours, that's what the research says.
Okay.
And when people are sleep deprived, it has implications and it has consequences. One of the best things that we can do for our mental health is to get a good night's sleep. Because when we get that well-established sleep pattern, it helps to recalibrate a person's brain.
Mm-hmm.
It also affects their mood. If young people, children, are not sleeping properly, they tend to be very moody, very irritable, very grumpy, and snappy. So a good night's sleep, that's a window into someone's mental health. So make sure as parents that their children are getting a good night's sleep, and that their routine is consistent, and that they're always willing to put themselves in the shoes of the child, so that will help them to identify with the child and to connect with the child on an emotional level.
I will say, as an adult, I absolutely notice my differences between happy April and not so happy April, very lacking in energy
Right.
when I'm sleep deprived.
Yes.
So I can imagine for children
Mm-hmm.
when they don't have full control and sometimes full autonomy over their functions
Yes.
from day to day, when they are lacking in sleep, when they're lacking in consistency or routine,
Yes.
so that makes sense that that's something we want to
Exactly.
promote
Yes.
and pattern and model and establish. So one thing that my team and I encourage parents to do in the home is to limit technology.
Mm-hmm.
We know with a lot of the developments and even educational tools,
Yes.
technology can be our friend, but I also feel like it can be our foe.
Yes.
I think there's something to be said about things in moderation.
Yes.
Do you feel that there are some ties between potentially overuse of technology and mental health and well-being, or the ability to concentrate or anything like
Most
that?
definitely. Great question. So let me say a couple things. When it comes to technology, the research says that for human beings, especially young people, to get a good night's sleep, 1 hour before their bedtime, that we should disconnect from the television screen, from the computer screen, and from the cell phone screen. Because those three devices give off a particular light, which affects the receptors in the eyes, which make it difficult to sleep. The research is also saying that when it comes to spending time on those devices, that children should not be unmonitored, but they should be able to spend a certain amount of time, but not go over.
Sure.
Because the research is saying now that there's a connection between mental health issues such as anxiety and depression when children are spending too much time on the phone. And we also know that when they're spending too much time on those devices, it limits their social skills. And they're spending more time by themselves, which impacts their ability to connect with people on an emotional and on a social level. So we have to be very careful with those devices.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
As an educator, my observations of seeing students, particularly young students, who struggle with social skills,
Yes.
but they are whizzes with some of their technological devices. And not that we can't have balance. We definitely have students who are strong in social skills, who are also very strong in their skills with technology. But we don't want the technology to overshadow what I think is good old-fashioned conversation and the ability to relate to other people
Exactly.
outside of technology.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
wow. And that's probably why I sometimes feel tired in the morning when I am in my bed on my phone,
Yes.
scrolling through Facebook statuses and posts. So I have to work on that personally.
Yes.
One more question. Just are there any things you'd like to share about your business and tell us some of the services that you offer?
Okay. In terms of my business, I do a lot of counseling with families, individuals. I see a lot of children. I do a lot of psychological evaluations, quarterly testing, do training in terms of stress management, do work in terms of substance abuse, and then an area that I'm always exploring and I'm interested in that is in sports psychology.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
Yes,
Okay, so you probably stay moderately busy.
I'm busy, which is a good thing.
More reason why I'm very grateful for your time today.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation. We look forward to bringing you more important things you can take with you and hopefully help you in you and your scholars' journeys in education.